the reason that every email marketer eventually just starts dabbling in e-com is because we have the ability to say, these are the SKUs they bought. This is when they were last active on site. This is when they moved from subscriber to, or I should say, prospect to buyer. This is when they typically should reorder. And you can basically create the whole buyer journey, right? And with e-com, there's ways of seeing sort of like how much somebody spent. And thankfully with platforms like Magento, OpenCart, BigCommerce, Shopify, obviously Shopify, we have like a 2-second, 3-click, boom, your data's in there and you can start slicing and dicing. And you just can't do that for an insurance agent or, for a mechanic shop or whatever, right?
You're listening to Copy and Conversion, where we share expert strategies to grow your business using the power of compelling sales copy. You're about to learn from the best minds in marketing how to be more persuasive, make more sales, and increase your impact with copywriting. And now your host, Brad Wages. Hey, today I am talking with Daniel Deyette. Daniel is the founder of AnswersWanted.com, an email marketing agency specifically focused on e-commerce businesses and helping them boost sales and increase revenue. He also runs MailerSkills.com, where he helps agency owners, freelancers, and copywriters develop and improve their email marketing skills. So Daniel is a true email expert, and I'm really excited to have him on today. Daniel, how's it going, my friend?
It's not too bad. It's been a nice, beautiful, sunny day here.
You're in Vancouver, right?
Correct. Yeah. No, we've got offices in Washington State and just literally 28 blocks north of the border here in British Columbia, Canada.
Right on. Yeah, I lived in Seattle for a while, and I had some friends who lived in Vancouver, and I drive up there every so often. It's a great city.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's kind of a little special place in the world where you're only a short drive from the beach, a short drive from the mountains if you want to ski, and maybe only a couple hours more, and you're in the desert Okanagan, and you can pick up apples and fresh peaches and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. Some of the best skiing, I think, in North America up there in Whistler, man. So you're blessed in that area.
Yeah, even Bill Gates skis up there.
Oh, nice. All right, Daniel, let's dive in and talk about email. So I've got a bunch of questions I want to ask you because you've been in this industry for quite a while. So let's start with the beginning. Tell me about how you got into email marketing in the first place. I know you have kind of a story there that maybe starts with a big email mistake that you made at one point in time.
Yeah, no, it's funny. So, I used to work at this place called the Internet Marketing Center under the famous Corey Rudel, who kind of was a pioneer of internet marketing. And basically, long story short, my daughter was about to be born and I wanted some time off. In the end, it just worked out that I went on leave and started my own marketing agency. And my first month with the marketing agency, we did over 25 grand in sales. And it was like, well, I guess it doesn't make any sense to go back to the job, And one of the first projects I worked on in the agency was this company where they were basically working with pastors and preachers and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny, actually, but basically what happened was, I know this sounds really crazy, but, as entrepreneurs, we like to test, different things. And at the time, I didn't know anything about deliverability. I didn't know anything about like core stats or things that matter for email. I just thought it was another marketing medium like, PPC or SEO or something. And so I knew that if you get under people's skin with a really juicy headline and then kind of, twist it around with the copy that, you can get eyeballs. So one of the email campaigns I scheduled to about 400,000 pastors said, "I hate Easter." And of course, the message was, 2,000-year-old story. You got to come up with a new angle every single time. It's one of the biggest challenges if you're working 3 jobs and, you're what they call a bivocational pastor, somebody who does multiple jobs, right? And so I thought this was going to be great. Like, don't you hate this one aspect of it, not Easter itself, right? Well, in the meantime, a lot of people didn't even bother reading the message. They just clicked spam, and the complaint rates went off the charts, and Aweber shut down the account, and
Oh,
you know
no.
we had been driving pay per click for this this whole thing. There was hundreds of thousands of dollars spent to grow that list, and I don't know, when you're in a niche like like that, you don't back up your list. I mean, you back up your list when you're in weight loss supplements, biz op, whatever, but we didn't do it. So literally, when they shut down the account, there was no backup of those leads, and they just shut it down. And you
Man.
know back then, like, I tried to reach out to the customer service, wouldn't respond to me. The phone, they wouldn't respond to me. Finally I tweeted the CEO and gave my story, and they, messaged back, and finally they reinstated the account. But for 3 straight days, I was sweating bullets, like, how do you tell a client that, you've lost everything? Um,
Uh,
yeah.
that's
So,
worst case scenario.
yeah. And so when they reinstated the account, obviously got the leads back. But I mean, when that happens, I mean, we, it spooked the horse for me, because I realized that all my eggs were in that basket and they controlled my destiny. And that's when I realized that, I had to build a commercial email server in the Amazon cloud. So I reached out to one of my friends who used to work at the IMC. And she used to run the strong mailboxes there. We built the whole self-hosted email platform. And as I asked questions, when she was basically explaining to me, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. And I said to myself, marketers don't know this stuff, right? I mean, there's just,
Mhm.
I Googled this stuff, and there was a lot of people just saying, like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? And a lot of people, when they got their accounts shut down at these different email providers, they were just clueless as to what they did wrong, right? And a lot of times they just won't give you any answers. So that motivated me to go, hey, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. What we should do is, write a book. And I actually wrote the very first book ever on email deliverability, called Maximum Open Rates, and launched it on Amazon, sold a few 100,000 copies. Like, it was a big thing. And it was all because that, stupid mistake of using something far too edgy for that list.
That is really interesting. I've done a lot of work with email. I read about email a lot, and that is not something that many people talk about at all, creating your own email server. So are you able to use like an ESP on your own server? Is that kind of how it works? Or do you have like a custom sort of ESP that you create?
Well, this is yeah, it's a long story, but basically, when you create your own, I mean, you can go and create your own everything, right? I mean, it is possible to be all the way your own email service provider, your own Aweber, basically. But for most people, it's not worth it, because the amount of work you'd have to do, well, if you've got a big list, like, say, if you've got over, say, 50,000, like, there's some legwork or back end work that people like Aweber do for you, that recreating yourself is a huge pain in the butt. Like, there's around 130 or so, at least in the United States, what do they call those? Um, Forwarding, not forwarding, feedback loops, I should say, that you'd have to sign up for to have an idea what your complaint rate is, right? Like, if you don't have software managing that. So, like, every time somebody complains, with the exception of Gmail, because they don't really tell us exactly who complained, with, like, say, AOL, Yahoo, Hotmail, etc., they have this process where you can sign up and find out who your complaints were, and then they'll forward you the content, and then you've got to remove those people. And so, long story short, and that's only one piece of what they do. They do a whole bunch of different things with your deliverability, that recreating yourself is a big pain. So the smartest thing, although I could, like, write an entire book about, like, how to be your own literal service provider, is to hire a third-party service like smtp.com, SendGrid, MailSpark, you know, what's that called? Is it Green Arrow or Green Rope? The one that MailChimp does. Either way, like, you can basically get your SMTP provider, hooked up to your self-hosted email software. And then what that does is they've already done all the legwork, so you can get your complaint data, you can get your, your, what do they call it? Some of the different, hard bounce, soft bounce, all that kind of stuff passed back to you, so that you can manage that without having to do all that crazy legwork of managing that end of things. So when I should also add this, when you do that, the each SMTP provider has a different sort of risk level. So if you're in like, biz op or weight loss or a sketchy niche, maybe you're doing affiliate mailings, right? You have to kind of shop around for who's going to be your SMTP provider. And there are some from India and China where they'll let you do anything, but their IPs are just trash, And then there's people like in the middle zone where like SendGrid, you can kind of work with them, but there's certain niches they still don't really like to play in. And then, there's services like, smtp.com where you can have more of an active conversation with them and be like, hey, our subscribers want what we're sending. We did get them legitimately, but we might try this risky thing, and here's what's going to happen. And they'll work with you. And I found that they're one of the best. But yeah, I mean, it's it's pretty involved whether you do self-hosted or a combination of self-hosted with a third-party service doing the deliverability. But nowadays, most of my projects are on hosted platforms like Clavio, Active Campaign or Drip or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I know you focus primarily on e-commerce clients in your agency. What makes e-commerce email different from email selling, say, courses or professional services? What are kind of the similarities in those markets, and what are some of the differences?
Yeah, well, I mean, like everything, right? I mean, we have our core stats that we all have to follow, right? There's a certain level of bounce, click, open rate that all ESPs care about. And there's certain metrics you have to stay within no matter what who you're mailing or what for. Gmail's rules and Yahoo and, the deliverability stuff doesn't change. And to a certain degree, the subject lines don't change a whole lot either. What the difference is, and the reason that I play with ecom so much, is that e-commerce has so many data points that you can play with, right? Like you've got, like if you think about, say, doing email marketing for like an insurance company, or like one of the clients that I'm consulting with right now is a medical office, and for them, I mean, their systems are always weird, complicated systems that don't necessarily have an API you can pull data in and out of. So, like when was their last visit? Well, you can't really sync that with email easily. What different products did they buy, or what services did they use? You can't sync that up easily. So you're kind of limited in the different types of autoresponders you can create, right? And the different sort of automation and segmentation and all that kind of stuff. But with e-commerce, the reason that every email marketer eventually just starts dabbling in e-com is because we have the ability to say, these are the SKUs they bought. This is when they were last active on site. This is when they move from subscriber to, or I should say, prospect to buyer. This is when they typically should reorder. And and you can basically create the whole buyer journey, right? And with ecom, there's ways of seeing sort of like how much somebody spent. And thankfully with platforms like Magento, OpenCart, BigCommerce, Shopify, obviously Shopify, we have like a 2-second, 3-click, boom, your data's in there and you can start slicing and dicing. And you just can't do that for an insurance agent or, for a mechanic shop or whatever, right?
Yeah, totally. I discovered Clavio not too long ago. I was sort of more in the information product, coaching, information marketing space. And when I saw Clavio and what it could do, and sort of saw the picture of how it works with like Shopify or WooCommerce and how granular that information is, I was like, this is a whole new realm of insight and a whole new realm of ability to see what's actually working and create more value for clients. So Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I mean, that's the same as me. Like, I mean, I was in the info space for a while. Like, one of our sites is for mental toughness trainers, and it's for sports athletes, and it's in that same space, right? And you know, I literally the whole thing was on Infusionsoft, which every infopreneur pretty much uses, and we switched it all over to Shopify and Clavio, and you know, just for that same reason. But it's funny, like then right there, you start to realize the negatives or the drawbacks of digital services where like you keep trying to sell them a new package of info and, but once they got the info, right? And with physical goods, it's like, oh, well, you ate that chocolate bar, you need another one, right? And the consumption niches are where the real money's at, right? I mean, because once you get somebody hooked on something, they need more, and you can see the reorder rates and stuff. But yeah, I mean, when I saw the segmentation on that thing, I showed it to our lead dev, who, by the way, was the same one we started with back in 2009, who built that very first email server. And she said, "This is what I've always wanted to build, and they already built it." So yeah, so I share your love for that platform.
yeah, it's pretty amazing technology. So, Daniel, tell me a little bit about Answers Wanted, your email agency. What makes you guys unique? I know you do some different things compared to a lot of email agencies out there.
Yeah, I'm going to be transparent with you. I wish that we'd actually taken the time to actually do a sort of like an intentional, what do they call that? Like that we'd picked out a special segment and we'd actually defined ourselves as the guys who do this really well. For a while, it was deliverability, and we still are one of the best. I mean, we've had literally multi-billion-dollar companies come to us for deliverability consults. But I think one of the things that really changes people's perspectives quick when they reach out to us is that, uh, not to knock other agencies, I know that I'll probably get some flack for it saying it, but there's a lot of agencies out there where people are just another number. They're just another contract. You show up on the Zoom calls with them, and they're wearing their suits and their ties, and they're you know uh, throwing out buzzwords like crazy, and every project's just another branding exercise. And for us, like, we care about the consumers. We think about each person's email list as um, that we're an advocate for that list, not that we are the customer. I mean, yeah, sure, the customer that we're working with, whatever it is, supplement company or whatever, they are a customer of ours, but we care more about their customers than we care about them. So we'll advocate for them to the point where we'll get on a call and go, yeah, no, your subs aren't going to go for that, so we're not going to do that. And they'll be like, what? And I'll be like, well, honestly, like, I need to keep the unsub rate low, and I need to keep the revenue number high. And if this isn't going to serve that, then I'm not doing it. And they're like, well, this is what we really want. And a lot of cases, it's, one of those scenarios where it's like, well, I'm all about driving results. If this campaign won't drive results, it's not going to look good for me. It's not going to work great for you. So we can't do that. So like, we care more about them than we do about that. And we also care a lot about the actual project. Like, we look at the numbers almost daily, usually daily, and we're constantly keeping an eye on the numbers. And we've noticed there's a lot of people where, they never really have true ownership of what they're doing for the client, right? It's just another client or it's somebody else's company. They don't really care. And for us, I mean, I know, that whole "we really care" thing, something most companies say, but they don't live it. They don't actually look every single day and go, "Oh shoot, we're losing money. We need to do something today to fix that," and quickly throw together an offer, a secondary email, find another segment that hasn't been tapped lately, and fire off a quick email to make those numbers match. And we do that because we actually care.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like that approach, that mindset. That is a very high level of involvement with your clients. So, do you arrange to do a kind of like revenue share that really helps to motivate to keep those numbers always going up and monitoring things on such a granular level?
We have done that. We have also got, one project two projects actually that we did where it was actually a percentage of ownership. in the company, where basically we put our tech team and our email team on something, and basically we get a percentage of the shares of the company. I mean, basically what we do is there's a 6-month trial period where they get to see what we can actually do, where it's just retainer based, and then we switch to retainer, a small retainer plus, a percentage of the take. But, not every company's into that. And you can't walk up to, Epson printer, Fender guitar or something like that and say, hey, I'm going to run your ecom email and I want a chunk of the take. They're just not going to go for it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's just about, being a service provider and offering a reasonably priced expert level rate. And so, when we first started out, our rates were kind of, a little bit above average maybe, but not a lot above average. Nowadays, obviously, we charge a decent premium for the management service, but I think there's a lot of people who think that if you offer somebody a percentage of sales, that it's going to somehow motivate somebody to work crazy harder. But for us, I mean, when you love copywriting and you love sort of playing with the fish on the email list, kind of like fly fishing, you put that thing on the edge of the water and you just watch what they respond to. Like, that's the fun of this whole thing. And, as long as the client's not annoying to work with, which, you have to get enough revenue going that you can afford to fire those, then it's actually really fun. So, I don't know. And the fact that, most cases, email is not that big of a deal when you've got systems in place. So you can handle quite a few. The average email marketer can at least handle 3 big accounts without going crazy. That's more than enough money to be making, at least in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I come from the copywriting world. It's my background. And I feel like the revenue share deals are sort of like the white whale. A lot of people talk about them, but they're really, really rare. I can think of maybe 3 people I know, and I know a lot of people in that world who actually have done those kind of arrangements. So it sounds really cool in theory, but I don't see it that often in the wild.
Yeah, I should probably share with you on the Slack channel, there was a conversation about that. And, with the epidemic going on, there was a few businesses that were struggling who started offering JV deals instead of paying somebody. And I said to them, when you get offered a JV deal, you got to look at it like as if you're going to buy that company. And if it doesn't make sense on that level, because basically your time is money, and your mental time investment and your time investment is just like cash, and if it wouldn't make sense for you to pour in $2,000 to $4,000 a month into a business, then why would you do that with your time? And you have to look at all the aspects of the business. Like, you want to see that P&L if you're going to be doing a JV. It's the white whale thing. In the copywriting world, I can tell you straight up that there's a handful of shops out there that they actually like to do the rev deal, where you might get 5 to 15% of sales ongoing. But I can straight up tell you that most businesses aren't going to want to do that forever. They might try it for a few months or a special promo, but what happens is after a few years, right, or months, years, depending, people start looking at that, expense on their monthly expenses and start going, why are we paying that? Why don't we just rewrite it ourselves or whatever? Or why don't we just not pay it at all, because it's been forever and, the copy's stale and that guy's not doing anything anymore. So it's one of those things that I think has been oversold to the copywriter world.
Yeah, I agree. Daniel, one thing we have talked about before is the way that you do market research for your email campaigns. You have a pretty unique process for how you do that. The way that you kind of gauge consumer sentiment. Can you talk a little bit about your process and how that works?
Yeah, no, I can talk about that. For each client and each project is a little bit different. We basically, when I look at consumer sentiment, obviously I constantly look online for reports that people have written and, stuff in the news that are, that are basically talking about consumer confidence, buyer behaviors in this particular month. I look at individual niche industry reports. Sometimes I even look at Amazon's current best-selling products, or sometimes I'll join Facebook groups related to that niche, or to that topic, and see what the current conversations that are hot are. The Reddit threads, if that niche has those. Obviously, Google publishes the trends.google.com, which shows you different highlights. Pinterest has got theirs, HubSpot's got theirs. But yeah, I dig into all that, and then I kind of distill it into sort of some of the sort of point form notes that I'm seeing. And then from there, I can get an idea of what's going on. But that's only one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that, you obviously look at things by age groups, and you look at things by, the time of the year. Unlike this current particular situation that's been going on in the world lately, normally each season has mindsets around them. So you can kind of usually formulate what 80% of the world is thinking, or 60% of the world is thinking, and just appeal to that common denominator.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So if you do this kind of research and you see these trends, you've compiled it into your notes, how does that translate into campaign strategy or copy?
Yeah, well, so you have to, go from airplane view down to, dirt on the ground view here for a second, and take the, what's that called? We have to grab a niche to really give an example. So let's pretend, for example, that you have a supplement company and you normally sell sleep tablets that contain, like, I don't know, valerian root, right? Like some natural thing. And so every week, normally you were doing like sleep tips, or maybe you were doing like de-stressing or things like that. Now we need to start to formulate that stuff towards things like, people stuck at home and home stresses. Now you have to relate things to reasons they might stay up at night, like the financial stress. You might want to, offer recipes and foods that support that. And not only that, but you might also want to relate stress to the immune system, right? And lack of sleep to the immune system, because everybody's thinking about immunity right now and worrying about getting the big bug and the virus thing, right? So what you do is you take consumer sentiment and what they're buying, and you relate it to the product and dovetail it into facing this issue, concerned about this, interesting stats about this, fascinating news or recent research about this. Well, we also know this. And, basically it's kind of like extrapolating the fancy thing that we use in the copywriting world called a yes set, right? It's kind of like this idea of what I say to you, hey, so have you been a little bit more stressed out lately than you ever normally were? Yeah. Okay, well, let me tell you something else. Does that ever impact your sleep at all? Sometimes. Okay, well, here's another interesting thing. Did you know that your brain does the following things according to this proven research? Here's research from, PubMed and all these places that shows that sleep does this. And you're like, well, I can't deny those things. It sounds like that's probably true. And then you say, now, if you got just an extra 30 minutes more sleep of quality delta sleep, could you see that actually making a difference in your life? And you go, yeah, I guess so. And then you say, well, you also know that based on that research, that if you had more melatonin and if you had this and this and this, that you probably would get, more productivity, and you'd probably feel happier, less depressed, and, you would have more opportunities to do better things that you want to do in your life and care more and be happier and whatever. Would that be worth investing in? Well, yeah, of course. So can you really put a price on that? Well, we've got this bottle. It's only $18.99, normally $29.99. And we're going to keep that offer open for the next week. What's stopping you from ordering it? And your brain's going, well, I've already said yes to all those other things. Now it's really hard to say yes or to say no to that, right? So it's like the classic yes set combined with consumer sentiment, right?
That's great, man. I think you just wrote an entire email off the cuff.
Yeah, just right here, just making it up with nothing but the campaign strategy doc I shared with you the other day.
That's great. So that the information you get, what is kind of the the half-life, so to speak, of that? Are you going like week by week? So like weekly emails based on the research you did this day and then kind of doing another round of research to update the next week? Or is it like a shorter cycle, longer cycle than that?
Well, so I mean, obviously, what's going on in the world right now is an exceptional circumstance. Uh, Typically, like, if you're working with, I don't know, say like a dog food brand or a power tool brand or something like that, or a t-shirt brand, 90% of the time, once you have a rough idea of what's happening around Christmas for that niche, you're not going to go research that a million times. We all know the rough mindset of Christmas for that niche if you've been doing it for a while. If I was marketing something like eyelashes or veteran apparel or something like that for the very first time, I might go do that quick research to get a glimpse of what's being said or thought in that time of year. Like for veterans, it might be Christmas time is really hard on them because of the people they've lost and the memories and all that junk. For eyelashes, it might be those Christmas parties, and it might be glam and glitz when you're out caroling or whatever it is. I'd have to go and figure that out because I don't know, right? I mean, these are the real deal. But I mean, like, so you do that once, but once you've kind of got that outlined, if that client stays around a long time, like most of ours, at least 3 to 5 years is kind of the average. Then you don't do that multiple times. But I have a bit of an outline for what we do with thought leadership, and sort of how we we'll sign up to other third-party lists related to that niche. We'll keep an eye on certain Google alert phrases for that niche. And then that just kind of sort of auto-populates in an inbox for that client. And we can just kind of get an idea of, what's happening in that space. And then hopefully you don't have to do that too much because obviously, there's not a huge budget for market research. It's mostly focused on writing copy, creating offers, and, following the 9-step offer process to get high converting offers out to the list.
Awesome. Hey, let's talk about coronavirus and the impact that it's having on businesses right now. What do you see working in the COVID-19 world that we live in now?
Yeah. Let me just bring up something about that actually. Yeah, I mean, the fact is that, we're seeing consumer behavior has shifted a little bit, right? I mean, like we've got, what do they call it? People are kind of paying more attention to the washing of their hands and this and that. So, basically at the end of the day, I've really been finding that, the gardening niches and all those kind of things are, what's the word I want to use? That's really growing. And we're seeing basically a whole bunch of different, what do they call that? Niches that are sort of exploding that never did before. Personal fitness is exploding. We're seeing, cycle shops, online coaching, home computer items, survival prepper stuff, supplements, coffee and alcohol, porn, garden equipment, books and entertainment. All those things, those categories are exploding, whereas, the other categories where, that didn't fit into those niches, like the power tools, for example, that's kind of lesser moving, and clothing is not moving nearly as well, and makeup isn't moving nearly as well. So, there's changes in that respect, but we're also seeing things like, free shipping is much bigger than it ever was before. And, being sort of transparent and real with your list is super important nowadays. The stiff-shirted, general statement stuff just doesn't work as well, Yeah, I think that one thing more than ever, unfortunately, the world is becoming more afraid. And it's a good thing for entrepreneurs because, there's a lot of people who are freaking out and selling off their business for a great deal. And it's also, it's an unfortunate thing for people who are scared and worried about their food or their next paycheck. But, one of my favorite marketers, Justin Brooke, always said, the money just doesn't disappear. It's not gone. Money doesn't, go away. There's people still have money sitting in their mortgages. Businesses will still grow again, and what do they call that? There's still literally tens of millions of people still gainfully employed through the pandemic in medical and legal and food production, all these different things, that there's still more than enough market there to run a business successfully if you're being smart about things.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Do you think there is going to be a permanent long-term shift in e-commerce now that so many more people are unable to go out of the store, and there some of the people who didn't use online or buy things online so much before now been exposed to it, see that it's safe, convenient? Do you think it's going to kind of kick e-commerce into like another gear after the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the convenience is undeniable. And, I see the same thing in e-learning, right? Like, I mean, now people are more likely to hire a tutor online instead of, hiring one locally. Now people are looking more at, I mean, recently, right now, you can drop an email and just get your car insurance in, 30 minutes rather than having to go into an office. And a lot of people are going to want to keep doing those kind of things and ordering, the basic staples online because, you know, the worst thing ever. I mean, for a real example is we go to Walmart on a regular basis just to get this particular soap that my wife likes and shampoo. And lots of times they were sold out of it. Well, why would we bother? Why not just order it online? It shows up at your door and you don't have to go, 3 times to find out they're out of stock all 3 times. Um, I do think there's going to be a huge shift, which unfortunately hurts local businesses in some respects, because obviously, if you can get it online, you don't have to go to wherever store carries it locally. But yeah, I mean, e-com is going to see some explosive growth, but obviously that'll be overshadowed by the fact that, there's several hundred million people that will be struggling financially for quite a while because of this.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's some people are going to win big, but there's always kind of the equal and opposite at some point in the economy. So, Daniel, what do you see as the future of email marketing? I mean, at this point, I think nobody really says email is dead anymore. That meme or that thought process is kind of over. It's obviously here to stay for a while. How do you see email evolving in the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of things that are shifting and changing in email. Um, I think that the biggest thing is that we're seeing a bigger embrace to SMS. We're seeing more people use fancy and prettier HTML graphic based emails. That's still kind of an evolving, growing thing. I think that using AI in email is going to be really big. Like we're already seeing Clavio's invented this thing, the churn risk and predicting it can predict gender now and all that kind of stuff. But I think that that's going to even happen even more, where we're going to see artificial intelligence being used in marketing and even to a small degree in copywriting. Um, I think there's going to be a lot bigger desire for transparency with consumers, where before it was sort of just, general sales and this and that. We can actually, go behind the scenes and show somebody around the warehouse or the production facilities, or share that heartfelt message from the CEO, and people are going to want to hear that. I think that some of the Gmail algorithm shifts are going to see more transactional stuff, going to spam, and more people learning how to use behavioral stuff more. I mean, consumer behavior data as well being reused. Like, for example, Yotpo is installed on a lot of Shopify stores. And I think one of the biggest things that we don't often do enough is to actually use those in emails and actually use consumer stories in the emails themselves and consumer pictures in the stories to make it more real, because they're not photoshopped and they're usually not, Instagram type pictures. They're just everyday pictures, and retargeting in email. Like, I feel like, at the 9-point buyer journey that most people use, and even the unengaged flow, like, when somebody drops out of your email, we can pixel those people if they open up that, tap tap, are you still there kind of emails, and then chase them around the web going, don't you love us anymore? Like, we can do that, right? I think that video use in emails kind of start expanding more. Social integration, mobile first design, minimalist email designs. And really, I think it also boils down to community over conversion. I'd really like to see that finally shift over, where we start thinking about these people as a tribe. We find out what their sacred words are, what their greatest desire is, and like where they want to go with their lives, and not just say, hey, you're another t-shirt buyer, but say, hey, you know what, like that war veteran example I used, right? I'd rather see a t-shirt company that focuses on, what's that called? Military memorabilia, actually start championing their list and, raising their flags and pitchforks and being like, we as a people are going here. We are frustrated with people who wear war memorabilia, who've never served a day and couldn't hold a gun to save their lives, down with them and up with us, who, served our country proud and, did those things, like to actually rally troops and to, create that community over just going, hey, we've got this, t-shirt and I want you to buy it because it's got a really cool picture and here's the button and, go pick this up and only for the next 3 hours. Like, I'd rather be saying, we're the ones who proudly deserve to wear this. And every single one of you that buys one of these is going to be telling the world that you care for your country, So care for your country when you buy this today, because I want every single one of us to go out there loud and proud, preaching the message that our service mattered. And, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you see the difference? Like, I think those are the things that really need to change in the next, 3-4 months to 2020 kind of range.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Like, you could have the most ninja platform in the world, Clavio, all kinds of optimizations and customized flows. But unless you have that big idea, that compelling story, that identity that people resonate with, all the other stuff, I mean, it's just like a billboard on the highway, that nobody cares about. You got to have that human story, that human connection. And especially now, the more niche and the more specific it can be for the people on the list, the more they're going to become long-term subscribers, long-term customers.
Yeah, and feel like they're a member of that community. I mean, that's the whole bottom line. I mean, and those billboards, I mean, the thing is, a lot of people can get away with that because there is demand for, whatever it is you sell, energy bars or, what do they call it? Plant extractions stuff or extracts or whatever. Like, there is consumer demand for it. So you put that sign out on the highway and somebody goes, oh, well, I need some more flax oil. I'll go get some. But you're never going to have that person who goes, I'm a member of that community and I identify as one of those people who stands behind that message, mission, and vision and those stories and those beliefs, It's like that. I don't know if you ever heard that story Blake Mycoskie tells. He's the guy who founded Tom's Shoes.
Sure.
He had this thing. His mission was 1 for 1, right? You buy a pair of Tom's shoes, you're buying a pair for somebody else. And he tells this story where he was in the New York airport, and at this time he was doing this thing, supporting some cancer thing. So he shaved his head so he didn't look like his usual self. But either way, he sees this lady wearing Tom's shoes, right? And he goes, nice shoes, right? And anybody who's seen those shoes, by the way, they ain't that nice of shoes. But regardless, I'll leave that alone, right? But so he says to her, nice shoes. And she goes, thanks, they're Tom's. And he goes, that's nice. And he just kept walking, right? And she goes, no, you don't understand. These are Tom's shoes. He's like, yeah, okay. And she's like, because I bought these. And she tells the whole story, right? And he's like, hold up. My name's Blake Mycoskie. I founded the company. I know, right? But what's funny is she didn't buy the shoes. She bought the story. Yeah. We get to do this every day. Like, Brad, we get to do this for people. We get to tell those stories that make somebody grab somebody by the jacket and go, listen, this is what this is. This is what I bought. And, she'd never been to the factory. She'd never done anything, but she bought the mission and vision that was sold through some sales copy, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
cool part.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating, and it's powerful. So many people talk about the idea of storytelling, but when you see the specific examples of how it works, and when it's actually tied to, something like Tom's, where it's not just a story, it's an actual, they're doing actual good in the world for people. It's super powerful. I mean, it goes beyond marketing. It's making a positive impact.
Yeah, but I mean, that positive impact can be on somebody's health, on their workshop, which they, care about for their power tools. It can be about their dog, right, and the food that it eats. I mean, we can build a altruistic, mission and vision, for any niche, right? I mean, it doesn't all have to be charity.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. No, I agree. Let's see. So, Daniel, in your opinion, who are some of the companies out there that are doing email marketing really well? What are some of the lists that you subscribe to for your own personal swipe file?
Yeah, it's tough to pinpoint that because whenever you name somebody, you think they're some people maybe do some certain things well, but they don't do other things well. I mean, I actually have like this thing called the Guru Swipe in my Gmail that certain people go into, but for actual copy style, I'm a huge fan of Justin Goff's stuff. I'm a huge fan of Justin Brooks' old stuff that he did back in the day. Some of that stuff was really dialed in. Like you couldn't not read it. Same with Ian Stanley, although he's a little on the edgy side. Um,
He's a little woo woo from time to time.
yeah, well, he also, there's certain stiff-shirted people who might not like his style of humor is what I was more getting at. Um, you know, um, using body parts as his diagrams and stuff. But anyway, but it's loose, and I really like that he doesn't care that he's himself and that's what he does. But if you're wondering, like in the subspace, I mean, I know Dr. Axe is kicking butt, and what's that called? There's a bunch of the major organics guys that are kicking butt. But yeah, I mean, every niche has their big player, right? I mean, the woodworking tool space has their sort of killer people, right? Like the what's that thing called? Woodcraft is the big killer in that space. Like each space has somebody out there who's uh, knocking it out of the park. I think in the dog space, I think True Dog and what's that one? I think it's Pet World or something like that. Pet Health or something, that those two have been killing it. But it really depends on the niche. I mean, either way, I think just about every copywriter should be reading Justin Goff stuff because, I mean, he really, like, the guy literally sent an email to his list one time talking about how his mom used to beat him. And, like, honestly, there was nothing for sale. There was no like pivot to an offer or a example in copywriting strategy. It was just being real with the list. And that takes, I'll use the word courage, but you know what I'm thinking about saying. That takes a lot of courage to do that. And, but what's crazy is like, you might think to yourself, like, wait a second, telling something that revealing and personal, like, what's the benefit? How does that fit into the company mission and vision? What about branding, right? Like all those, back to those guys in the suits that I have never been a huge fan of, that run the marketing agencies and act like their stuff doesn't stink, and they like they're almost not really human. They're this perfection walking around in Madison Avenue. And the truth is that when you do that kind of deep level connection and people feel you, they don't buy the products. They're buying you. And when brands can do that, they can sometimes reveal or share a story that doesn't have to be about the product. Like I call them Seinfeld emails, right? I mean, that show was pitched to NBC as a show about nothing. but it actually was about something. It was about things that happen every day in your normal everyday life. And sometimes when you reveal those struggles or those triumphs or whatever, it makes you real and human, and you build a relationship and you feel like you know them a little bit deeper. And then, once you have the know, like, trust, I mean, then your next pitch comes out and maybe you're tired or whatever, and you just go ahead and do a straight deal announce, and it's going to convert because, oh, well, that's from Brad. I know Brad. Brad's awesome. Man, Brad's had a really interesting life, and I really care about that guy, and I really like some of the stuff that he shared with me. And so yeah, I'll go ahead and buy that because I feel like I know the guy, right? Otherwise, how are they ever going to really know us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. One thing I'm interested to hear your perspective on is, say the company is not, they don't have like a face of the brand, like a guru, so to speak. If it's like an e-commerce brand, that's product focused, what are some ways you can take that sort of revealing, emotional one-to-one sort of storytelling and sharing and apply that to like just the brand in general?
Can you give me an example or a fictitious industry or niche to play with on that?
Sure. One of my recent clients is like energy bar clients.
Hmm.
Um, there's no like face of the brand. It's just focused on the bars themselves. It's like a monthly kind of subscription is their main focus, is getting people on a subscription. Um, in my background, I don't know if you're familiar with Golden Hippo Media. I worked with those guys for a while doing email, and every brand they have is very guru, face of the brand focused, and makes it easy to tell their stories because it's like first person, everything you talk about. And it's like definitely a shift if there's no specific person. So what are your thoughts on how to maybe generate a similar level of familiarity and connection, even if it doesn't come from like a first person perspective in terms of the email copy?
Yeah, I yeah. So basically, one thing I've done with companies that don't actually have a face of the brand kind of thing is that I've sort of used personal customer stories. And the Wall Street Journal is a classic example of this, right? They had a newspaper. Obviously, nobody really knows who the face of the Wall Street Journal is. There's no guru behind it. But the best sales letters that they ever wrote was this one that there's two young men. They were both very smart. Both went to the same schools, lived in the same communities, both had great parents, blah blah blah. And then, yeah, this sales letter, right? It's in the Wikipedia. It's probably the only sales letter in there. Anyway, the long story short is that using those sort of connecting stories, even if they're just about a fictitious situation or about theoretical people that illustrate a point. I mean, just about every TV commercial is this, right? It's a fictitious day in the life of a couple of people who have a ragweed allergy or who have menopause symptoms or whatever it is, right? But they're never real people. When Sally Jones comes on there and yaks about her, her morning routine, it's never real, but it's an illustration. And we're so used to those, and nobody has to tell us, by the way, that's not a real illustration. And if the acting's good enough, you buy it. So that's one way you can get around that. But I think that I also like to see those sort of founders get out of the woodwork if I can convince them to, and they don't have to put their name out there, but they can say, hey, this is Jim, I'm the founder of the company, and you can write one of those emails, and that can help too. But other than that, you have to fall back on customer stories and fictitious stories.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Daniel, let's talk about Mailer Skills, which is your email training business. How did you decide to start that, and what sort of training and courses and things do you have over there?
Yeah, well, I mean, every single day I'm basically working with my copy cubs, and I'm working with different brands, and we're building systems and processes to make those jobs easier. And so I just thought it was just a natural thing that, there's a lot of people out there that do what I do, but maybe they haven't been doing it as long, or they struggle, and there's nowhere for them to turn. And I mean, there's probably some stuff out there that's okay. I mean, I don't mind Ezra Firestone stuff. Ryan Dice has got some good things going on, but they don't have the flavor and style I do, and they play in different niches in different ways than I do. And I felt like this stuff has to get out there. So I just started piecing the bits and pieces together that we use every single day in our marketing and our agency, and putting it up there for sale so that other people could get access to those kind of resources too.
Very cool. What other cool projects are you working on these days?
Well, I've been playing CMO for a big supplement company up north, and I've been, what do they call it, working on acquiring other supplement brands, and just basically helping with those things and growing revenue for that. And we've always had our own mental toughness trainer, Shopify store and business, and operating that's always been fun. And other than that, I like working on cars on weekends, and playing with technology.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like you got a lot of stuff going on. Definitely got your hands full. A few different businesses plus the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Daniel, what's the best place if somebody wants to learn more about you, find out more? What's the best place to go?
Probably just mailerskills.com.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, if you want to get good at email, especially e-commerce email, Mailer Skills has some great information. So highly recommend it. Definitely check it out. Daniel, it's been a pleasure. The past 45 minutes or so, I personally have learned a ton about email marketing, and I know the folks listening will get a ton of value as well. So I appreciate you coming by.
Not a problem.
All right. Take care, and keep in touch. You've been listening to Copy and Conversion with me, Brad Wages. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more, you can subscribe via iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen. For show notes and a transcript of this episode, you can find those and more at bradwages.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.